Hello, everybody. My name is Jonathan Sanchez. My group mates are Jesus Gonzalez and Luis Alvarez, and today we will be presenting the problems between Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association. Now, to start off this presentation, we want to outline how it will look. We will explain the ongoing disputes between Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association. We want to discuss how these disputes can lead to long-lasting impact if they aren't resolved. We also want to create 3 solutions for these problems that benefit both organizations, and we want to present the best recommendation as we finish off the slides. Now, a quick case study before we get started on our presentation is, in the past year, how many times have you sat down, watched, and paid attention to a full Major League Baseball game on television? Attending a baseball game, do you tend to get bored or lack interest like these 2 gentlemen down below? And would you watch a Major League game over an NFL and NBA game? We want you to keep these thoughts in mind as we present through our whole presentation, and it shows how you rank American sports to others, and Major League Baseball always tends to be in last place compared to the others. Now, a background about the Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association is they have had many different cases of CBA contract disputes. These contract disputes occur when negotiation disputes happen, and strikes occur to settle these disputes. The years of strike have been 1972, 1981, 1985, 1990, and 1994-1995. The worst strike was the 94-95 season, as it stopped the 94 season, which canceled the World Series. The solution didn't end up happening till April 1995, when the next season was supposed to occur. Fans saw players and owners as money hungry. As you see down below, some of the comments from them were filled with greed, a play on words from the Field of Dreams movie. The main problem that we have seen between Major League Baseball and Major League Baseball Players Association is a lack of communication between both parties. This lack of communication creates an uneasy feeling between players and executives, as they don't know what to expect from each other's side. These communication problems also stem from recent controversy, weak relationship with current players, no opportunity for past players to be executives post-playing career, and not understanding players' needs. We will discuss more as we go on throughout our slides. In the bottom right of our slide, you can see on the left, Rob Manfred, the MLB commissioner, and Tony Kemp, the Major League Baseball Players Association leader. The first problem we do want to discuss is the recent controversy that has happened. In the beginning of 2020, the season obviously dealt with COVID-19, as America dealt with it in general. It postponed the start of season in March 2020 as the outbreak occurred in the United States. After that, and worries started to disperse, the problem was when they should start and the player's salary. Major League Baseball was the last sport to start in America, as the negotiation strikes hurt them like CBA contracts as well. The question came up, would the season actually happen, as the disputes were so bad. It ultimately did end up happening with 60 games and 37% expected regular season salary. The players were displeased with this, as they wanted a half season with 81 games and 50% expected salary. Also, Rob Manfred has had recent problems in the past years as he is leader of Major League Baseball. He has defended a proven team, the Houston Astros, for sign stealing after they won a World Series in 2017 without punishing any players. He also has publicly stated that 2020 season would 100% happen in June 2020 before this decision occurred. Then a week later expressed doubt of his 100% approval. I will now hand it off to Jesus to speak more about problems in Major League Baseball.
All right, thank you, John. The problem I'll now be discussing is the weak relationship that the commissioner has with current players. Rob Manfred has had very poor communication throughout his tenure as commissioner. This kind of all started with the Astros sign stealing scandal, and the players hated Rob Manfred for not punishing the Astros players. They should have been suspended, but instead only the executives were fired. The title should have also been vacated, which is something other teams and executives discuss, but instead Rob Manfred, a couple days after, comes out and calls the World Series trophy a piece of metal, which is something you don't degrade a trophy. And in response to this year with the delaying in the communication with the COVID season, Major League Baseball players started the Tell Us When and Where campaign, started by Mike Trout. And if Mike Trout does something, all other players follow it. And this was really successful in getting the players to advocate and start a season. Another problem Major League Baseball faces is no opportunities for the past players to become executives. The NBA and NFL have seen a lot of success. Jerry West, for example, down there, he's been a very excellent executive for the NBA. And MLB ex-players mostly always end up getting just coaching jobs. Ex-players becoming executives would allow that relationships between current players and executives get better. It is something that Major League Baseball, it's a serious problem and should be addressed. If not, it's going to lead to further disaster. And it could also relate with ex-players being executives. They could relate to current players and take the experiences they faced when they were players and take it into heart as executives. And it also allows players to build relationships with executives in the front office. That's something we don't see. We only see that in the NBA and sometimes in the NFL, but not at all in MLB. A recent success story as a general manager, ex-player becoming a CEO and taking control of a team was Derek Jeter. Derek Jeter was a former 20-year Yankee shortstop. Major League Baseball most storied franchise, the New York Yankees, and he was a 5-time World Series champion. At first, people were skeptical of this decision by the Marlins because he did have no executive experience, but in August 2017, he became part owner and CEO, and the Marlins are a small market and low success franchise team, so it was going to be tough to rebuild, but he took an approach that at first didn't please the fans, but eventually it paid massive dividends. As in 2020, the Marlins were able to clinch their first playoff spot in 17 years. And Derek Jeter has also rubbed off a winning culture and a winning vibe in Miami, which is something that hadn't been there for 17 years, which is something going forward is a huge success. Another massive problem that Major League Baseball faces is that they are not understanding the players' needs. Executives are not understanding their players' needs. Players have spoken out on many problems in many occasions, but they hardly ever see any change. They wanted to, so during the 2020 COVID stoppage, they wanted to start the season back in mid-April once the coronavirus concerns died down. They were pushing and trying to fight for playing half of the regular season games, like John stated earlier, because they wanted to gain half their salaries. They wanted some financial compensation, and executives were ignoring them. They were slow to agree, and this really caused a massive feud and division between executives and players. Eventually, they were forced on agreeing for 60 games, and the players were frustrated with the communication issues that executives basically just ignored them, because at the end of the day, players were seen as a financial figure and an asset, and they weren't seen as human beings. Like that's unacceptable in a business. You cannot like just ignore your employees. You have to address and build a strong communication standards. And now I will be passing it on to Lewis, who will present the solutions.
Thank you, John Jesus. For our first solution, we're proposing to establish a mandatory interview rule for all of Major League Baseball. This rule would be to require every team to interview a candidate for an executive position who was a previous player. This promotes players like Derek Jeter. This would encourage teams to hire ex-players. Ex-players better understand current players' needs, as obviously they were once players, so they know what they go through. And this would help establish a bridge between older executives and players that right now there is a communication issue, so having current players would help to strengthen that relationship. This would be similar to the NFL's Rooney Rule, where each team must interview one ethnic minority candidate. Our second solution would be to have new lead executives for the MLB and MLBPA. We would fire top executives like Commissioner Rob Manfred and MLB President Tony Clark. Manfred has not been the best negotiator with players' issues, as we can see through the whole COVID thing. MLB needs a commissioner who cares about the players and their needs and doesn't just look out for their own interests and to find ways to put the most money in their pocket. They must communicate with the MLBPA about players' concerns that they have with issues that they may come up throughout their whole season. We would propose to hire a current player to be president of the MLBPA. The NBA has something similar where Chris Paul is the president of the NBA Players Association, and he has a great relationship with the commissioner of the NBA, Adam Silver. This would also encourage players that'd be more comfortable going to a current player being president of the MLBPA and having them relay their issues to the commissioner. Our third solution would be to have new required training for MLB executives and owners. As stated by Jesus and John, players feel like they're just a number and not a valued person in the organization. Players' concerns are brushed off by the MLBPA and owners. Their issues are not taken to heart, and players are just seen as their opinions and concerns really don't matter to executives, which they should. And this training would start to repair the relationship between the front office and players. The current relationship isn't where it should be, and it obviously needs to be improved. Both sides don't trust each other based on previous experiences, and especially this whole COVID stuff. The MLBPA hasn't shown willingness to work with players on the issues that they have, and this has been an ongoing issue. So for our recommendation, would recommend that the MLB establish a mandatory interview rule, which every MLB team is required to interview a former player for top executives positions. This would give ex-players better chances of getting front office jobs and not just coaching jobs, which most current previous players are, most of them just get coaching jobs. Having former players within an organization would help ease the tensions between executives and players and help strengthen that relationship in the long run. We would also have Tony Clark be relieved from his duties as president of the MLBPA, and we would replace him with a current player. And we feel like having a current player would make relaying information a lot smoother, and former current players would be much more comfortable going to a current player and voicing their opinions, which would be relayed to the commissioner. And this concludes our presentation. We hope you learned something and you stayed engaged throughout the whole time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.